Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started.
Gravitas, co-presented by Skoda Superb, best in next class. Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist.
Saudi Arabia is charting a new course. Literally, the kingdom's latest batch of textbooks tell a very different and important story. The story of the shifting sands of Arab politics. For the first time, Saudi textbooks have removed sections that call for non-believers to be punished by death. They've removed texts that say Muslims will kill all Jews. It's a sign of the times and the change that is being ushered in under the leadership of Crown Prince MBS. It also comes at a turbulent time for the kingdom. The economy is suffering, the budgets have been cut, the oil infrastructure is under attack, and another royal purge is underway. Saudi Arabia is symptomatic of the challenges that all oil economies face. And how Riyadh deals with this churn will define the future of not just this kingdom, but the region. On Gravitas tonight, we'll discuss. Also on the show, Morocco is the latest Arab country to establish ties with Israel. Was there a quid pro quo with America on this? We bring you an exclusive interview with the Moroccan ambassador to India. Our continuing coverage of the Nigeria jihadist crisis. More than 300 school students abducted by Boko Haram 5 days on. What is the government doing? In Pakistan, a new law provides for chemical castration of rapists. What does that entail? And will it work in a country where the Prime Minister himself has been accused of sexual harassment? And in Paris, a unique case of reverse sexism. The City Hall has been fined for having, quote-unquote, too many women in top jobs. Have you ever heard anyone complain about too many men in top jobs? We shall discuss that too. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
Hong Kong civil servants were made to take a new pledge of allegiance to the China-backed government. The closed-door ceremony was presided over by Chief Executive Carrie Lam. All 180,000 civil servants in the financial hub are expected to take the pledge in the coming weeks. The UK and India will launch a new virtual hub to deliver coronavirus vaccines. The two sides will share best practices for regulation and clinical trials and foster innovation going forward. A new inquiry report reveals more than 250,000 children, young people and vulnerable adults were abused in New Zealand's faith-based and state care institutions in the past several decades. The number of people abused was almost 40% of the total people in care during that period. China is the world's leading jailer of journalists for the second year in a row, according to an annual survey by the Committee to Protect Journalists, which also found that 2020 was a record year for the number of journalists imprisoned globally. The International Rescue Committee has warned that Yemen is the country most at risk of humanitarian catastrophe in 2021, marking the third year for the war-ravaged country to earn this grim recognition. South Korea's healthcare system is on the verge of collapse in capital Seoul amid a record surge in COVID-19 cases. Only 3 critical care beds are available in Greater Seoul, a densely populated center housing over 25 million people. A scientific expedition in the Bolivian Andes has revealed 20 new species. along with the rediscovery of 4 species thought to be extinct, including the devil-eyed frog. Schools have been closed in Fiji and people have been asked to stock up on emergency supplies as a potentially devastating Category 5 cyclone Yasa bears down on the island nation, bringing high-speed winds and torrential rain across Fiji's 2 largest islands on Friday. The top 2 teams in the ICC Test Championships, Australia and India, lock horns in a 4-test series that gets underway in Adelaide from Thursday. India have named their playing 11 on the eve of the day-night test, and Prithvi Shaw has been retained as opener alongside Mayank Agarwal. Despite poor form in the warm-ups, Vidhiman Saha has been selected as the wicketkeeper ahead of Rishabh Pant, while Umesh Yadav will play as the third seamer with Mohammad Shami and Jasprit Bumrah. 2-time MVP Gianni Antetokounmpo has signed the richest deal in NBA history after agreeing a 5-year extension with the Milwaukee Bucks for $228.2 million. The previous record was set by Houston Rockets guard James Harden in 2017. Greek forward Antetokounmpo joined the Bucks in 2013 and was named MVP for a second successive season in September. The Bucks finished top of the Eastern Conference last season, but were beaten in the conference semis by eventual finalists Miami Heat.
This has been a difficult year for most countries, for Saudi Arabia especially so. The challenges are multiple. Saudi Arabia is a kingdom in crisis. Its economy is shrinking, its budgets have been cut, its oil tankers are being targeted. It has suffered 4 terror attacks in the past month. In the middle of this crisis, the Game of Thrones continues. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is carrying out another royal purge. It is being called the Mini Ritz, a smaller version of the major crackdown that took place in 2017 when scores of royals were detained in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh. Here's the thing. Saudi Arabia's churn is not unique. All oil economies have been forced into a hard reset this year. But given Saudi Arabia's stature in the region, its challenges appear more pronounced and have a bearing on others, which is why we are talking about them tonight. Driving this crisis is one commodity: oil. Oil hit rock bottom this year. Oil prices fell below zero. They've recovered since, but they remain at an all-time low. Demand has plummeted. Producers are leaving more supplies in the ground, and the result is this: Riyadh is making unprecedented cuts to its budget. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia wants to cut spending by 7.3%. Thanks to the Wuhan virus, Riyadh is running a budget deficit. The kingdom expects to be short of close to $80 billion this year, 80. That's around 12% of Saudi Arabia's gross domestic product, or GDP. With a deficit so huge, Riyadh has no options but to cut spending. It wants to slash spending to $264 billion this year. This is expected to bring the deficit down to less than 5% of the GDP. So why is Saudi Arabia short of cash? Because the pandemic has hit demand. Oil prices, like I said, have dropped. Riyadh is no longer earning what it used to from oil. So it will borrow to fill the gap. Saudi Arabia has not given a breakdown for oil and non-oil revenue in its budget. And this too is unprecedented. Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure is under attack, literally and figuratively. The Wuhan virus has killed demand, and extremists are attacking Saudi oil tankers. This is the second time that an oil tanker was targeted in recent weeks. 2 days ago, a fuel transport ship was attacked. A boat laden with explosives rammed into it. It happened when the tanker was anchored at the port of Jeddah. This is an important port because of its unique location. It is right in the middle of the international shipping route between the west and the east. No one was hurt. Some oil may have leaked. Saudi Arabia is calling this a terrorist attack. This explosion is the latest in a series of attacks against the kingdom. Earlier, a mine exploded and damaged a ship off the coast of Saudi Arabia. Riyadh had blamed Yemen's Houthi rebels for this. Another attack targeted a cargo ship in Yemen's Far East. The list of woes does not end there. Saudi Arabia is suffering a setback on the diplomatic front too. Germany has extended its ban on arms sales to Riyadh for one more year. It was first imposed in 2018 after the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And this couldn't have come at a worse time for Saudi Arabia, because France and Canada are also facing calls to revisit their arms deals with Riyadh. US President-elect Joe Biden is also facing similar demands. So the German ban sets a difficult precedent for Riyadh. And this is what it comes down to. Saudi Arabia is short of cash. Its oil supplies are under attack. Its arms deals are under threat. It's a challenging time for the kingdom. And it is at this time that Riyadh has chosen to carry out another royal purge, another anti-corruption crackdown that is underway. And this time, top-ranking military officials and low-level bureaucrats are on target. It is being called a mini Ritz, a reference to the 2017 crackdown when several princes and tycoons were locked up inside Riyadh's Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Reports say the latest crackdown has led to dozens of arrests in recent months. Hoards of cash have been found, and all of it will go to the state coffers, and Riyadh could use the extra cash as it works to devise more sustainable ways to support its economy. As we said, these challenges are not unique to Saudi Arabia. Oil economies across West Asia have been hit by the Wuhan virus. The shift away from oil was already underway. The pandemic accelerated it. We're looking at a future without oil. What will be the fate of these countries then in such a future? Our next report has some answers.
$2 trillion. That is what the Arab monarchies could lose in the next 15 years. Once the oil demand peaks. This dire prediction from the International Monetary Fund came in February. But as the Wuhan virus spread to more than 100 countries in the following months, the pandemic wiped out oil demand like never before. In May, lockdowns and travel restrictions had wiped out almost a third of the global oil demand. Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC countries, are set to lose $270 billion in revenue this year. Oil was the ultimate cash cow for the Gulf. But the pandemic has precipitated the end of the oil age. Even the richest kingdoms are struggling to balance their books, thanks to the fluctuations in oil prices. Saudi Arabia is the largest producer of oil. Going by one estimate, 70% of its budget comes from oil revenues. To meet its expenses, Saudi Arabia needs an oil price of $80 a barrel. As of today, oil is selling at less than $50 per barrel. Smaller oil producers are hurting more. In May, Algeria announced that it would cut its spending to half. Iraq, another leading oil producer, is staring at an economic collapse. For most of 2020, Iraq has been unable to pay salaries to government employees. Oman has the widest budget deficit among Gulf Arab economies. The country has been rated junk by 3 major credit rating companies. Its deficit stands at almost minus 17% of its GDP. It's the overdependence on oil that triggered this crisis of cash for the Gulf economies. And the crisis is here to stay. Oil prices are expected to remain low in the future due to oversupply and the improving availability of clean energy resources. If the Gulf economies don't wean away from oil, their coffers could run dry. The IMF predicts oil demand to peak around 2040. To account for this, oil economies must start substantial reforms now, else their financial wealth will deplete by 2034. West Asia runs the risk of running out of money well before it runs out of oil. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The Saudi dream was fueled by oil. The oil market is now drying up. Terrorism has become a big challenge. There's also a change in the geopolitical landscape. The Arab world is normalizing ties with Israel. At home, there's a leadership transition. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is changing the power structure in the Al Saud, or the House of Saud. He's challenging the old order, appointing a new generation of princes to key positions, including his own sibling, Abdulaziz bin Salman and Khalid bin Salman. So what Saudi Arabia is currently witnessing is change on many levels. The challenge before Riyadh is how it adapts to this change. Mohammed bin Salman became Saudi Arabia's Minister of Defense in 2015. In 2017, he was appointed the Crown Prince. His rise has been defined by change and established by a purge, plus a series of reforms and risky gambles. MBS wanted to bring the kingdom closer to the world, and he has worked towards it. He allowed women to drive. He opened the kingdom's doors to concerts, to movie theatres. The Crown Prince also curtailed the power of the religious police in Saudi Arabia. People were no longer regulated by strict gender segregation rules. Riyadh allowed women to obtain a passport and travel abroad without the permission of a male relative. He opened businesses. In 2016, MBS announced his Vision 2030. He sought to restructure, diversify and privatize the kingdom's economy. He kick-started the development of non-oil revenues. Perhaps the move helped cushion the pandemic's impact a bit. In 2020, Riyadh moved ahead with its economic reform. Saudi Arabia's sovereign fund invested $1.3 billion in India. The reforms continued on the domestic front as well. Earlier this year, Riyadh banned flogging as a punishment. It has also done away with the death penalty for crimes committed by minors. Saudi Arabia recently revised its school textbooks to make them more tolerant. It has also facilitated major diplomatic changes in the region. In the middle of the pandemic, 4 Arab countries normalized ties with Israel: the UAE, Bahrain, the Sudan and Morocco. These deals could not have happened without Saudi backing. The point I'm making is very simple here. Under MBS, Saudi Arabia is changing, and dramatically so. Some of this reform has been pushed by the Crown Prince. The rest has been forced by the pandemic. How Saudi Arabia adapts to this change, to this new oil order, will be critical not just for the kingdom, but for the region. And speaking of change, Morocco has become the latest Arab country to normalize ties with Israel. It is the 4th Arab country to do so in the last 5 months. The timing of Rabat's decision is crucial. It came as the United States recognized Moroccan sovereignty over the Sahara region. To talk about what the developments mean for Morocco and the Arab world, I'm being joined by a very special guest. Joining me live tonight on Gravitas is Ambassador Mohammed Maliki. He's the Moroccan ambassador to India, and he's joining us live from New Delhi in what is perhaps his first such interview to an Indian network. Good evening, Ambassador Maliki, and welcome to Gravitas.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Mrs. Shah.
There's a lot that's making news with Morocco in the headlines. I want to start with the story that affects Morocco directly. The United States recognizing Morocco's claims of sovereignty over the disputed Saharan region. What does this decision mean for you and your country?
Well, let me start by thanking you and then saying that this is a historical decision coming from the highest authority of the United States after tough negotiations which lasted for more than 2 years and a half. It's also, in a way, joining the action to the words. The United States have believed always that there could be only a political solution to the Sahara issue, that the Moroccan proposal for the autonomy is the only proposal on the ground which is feasible, credible, which is also having the international community support. So the United States, by all this decision, is only confirming what they have been believing so for the last few years, in fact, since 2007. So we're quite happy about this historical decision. It's a momentum that will help peace into the region.
You say there will be peace, and we hope there is, but there is also fear that this recognition will intensify the conflict between the Moroccan government and the Polisario Front rebels. What is the situation like at the front right now, where a 3-decade-long ceasefire was shattered in November?
I believe that the ceasefire was broken by the militia of the Polisario. when they entered the buffer zone in the Gargarat, and then preventing all the people from moving freely from Morocco to Mauritania to other African countries, and then also preventing the movement of the population. They cannot do it, and then His Majesty and then the government of Morocco informed the Secretary General of the United Nations and then all the members of the violations that have been made, and then that it's also had the right to defend its territorial integrity, and then to defend this buffer zone, and then to re-establish the communication between the Morocco and then the rest of the African countries. So the ceasefire was broken first by them. Second, we are always, and then we will be committed to the ceasefire, and then we have repeated it. In fact, the provocation didn't come from Morocco.
Was this recognition by Washington a precondition for Morocco establishing diplomatic ties with Israel?
I believe that big and well-established countries do not bargain on principles. And then for any Moroccan from the top, that is His Majesty, to the last layman, we have two national issues. The Sahara issue, Moroccan Sahara issue, is crucial. The Palestinian issue is very important, and then according even to the communique of the Royal Palace, it's equally important to Moroccans. So we are not jeopardizing, we are not bargaining. These are two important and different issues. They all go for peace, and it is quite important for the Moroccan population. And on the other side, let me tell you that it is not a normalization or recognition of Israel. In fact, it's only the reactivation of the mechanisms which already existed, a diplomatic mechanism, the cooperation that was already taking place.
But critics still say that with this agreement, Morocco may have alienated Palestine or some elements in Palestine that could side with the Polisario rebels. Is that a concern that you share? And are you saying here on the show that Morocco remains committed to the Palestinian cause despite having established ties with Israel?
Not at all. We are not putting one on the expense of the other. And I think Morocco is a very responsible country. It has always proven to be a responsible country, historically, but also nowadays on this politics. So there is no change at all in the positions. And then we are quite conscious that also the Palestinians are aware of the importance of the Sahara, Moroccan Sahara, for all the Moroccans. And then this fake news which had come lately about the youth supporting the Polisario is completely fake. And then there has been also official announcement that there was no communique or no statement as such. So I believe that they are quite aware of the importance. We are quite aware of the importance of the issue, and then the two things are not contradictory. We should be able to work together to find a solution in both regions for the peace and tranquility for all the people. And I think Morocco has always, in through history, and then it is also recognized, a positive role in bringing together the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I think the two-state solutions will be the ultimate solution for all these events.
Morocco, as we've been reporting here on WION, has become the fourth Arab country to begin normalizing relations with Israel. But as you mentioned, the two countries have maintained a relationship for more than half a century. So what will change with this formal declaration?
As I stated a little bit earlier, it's the reactivation of the diplomatic and then of the cooperation between Morocco and then Israel. What will happen on the ground, that the direct flights will start very soon, and then the Moroccan population and living in Israel who are binationals can travel very easily. That's a very good step. It's a step also for peace. Then secondly, we should be able to activate some other cooperation, like in IITs, like in agriculture, like in some areas where either Morocco or Israel have reached a certain very known and then recognized expertise. I would say the fertilizer from our side. I would say also energy. And then I think we should be able in the near future to discuss together what could be the form of this cooperation. So it's only a reactivation of what was already going on.
India too has friendly ties with Israel. How do you think Morocco's relationship with India will change, or where do you see things going after this agreement with Israel? Are there any potential areas of convergence for India, Israel and Morocco?
I think the relations between Morocco and India are quite important, and the relations between Israel and India are quite important. And then I believe that the relations between Morocco and Israel are important for to serve the peace. And I think India has a positive role to play in this, in good offices. And then I think due to its position and then to the Moroccan position, they can help quite a lot. They can bring innovative solutions to find a long-standing solution for this in the Middle East. The other side, there should be also, I think, some areas which could constitute. And I'm just thinking now that you're putting the question, I'm not really the decision taker. But I believe that there would be probably some areas where trilateral cooperation could import, because the Israel and Morocco and India are very known to be agricultural countries with large population and the occupation of this domain. And I believe that would be one of the areas. So I think it's only the beginning. There will be definitely some ways of reinforcing the cooperation by transitivity somehow, because when you have a friend who has a good friendship with the other person, it also helps into bringing others to the table, into facilitating. And I think the two countries, that is Morocco and India, could play a very good role in facilitating the peace process in the Middle East.
Very interesting. Recently, a series of agreements were also signed in your presence at the India-Morocco Business Forum. Morocco has aimed to establish itself as India's business gateway to Africa, to Europe and the Arab world. How do you plan to accomplish this vision?
I think this agreement, which was done by the Exim Bank of India and then BMC Bank of Africa in Morocco, is a timely decision, because it crowns a 5-year strong bilateral cooperation between the two countries. We have concluded like 43 agreements since the last visit of His Majesty on the margin of the Third Africa-India Summit. And then there was a very important historical meeting with His Majesty and then His Excellency Shri Narendra Modi, where they decided to elevate the relations into strategic partnership. And since then, we have been working, both the Moroccan government and the Indian government, to put concrete content for this strategic partnership. And I think the business communities have also been requesting to find very easy access to funding and very access to get investments both here in Morocco. And I think by this agreement, we are rendering very big service to our business communities to go along.
Thanks very much, Ambassador Maliki, for joining us here on WION and for sharing your perspective with us.
I thank you so much for inviting me.
6 years ago in Nigeria, at least 276 schoolgirls were kidnapped by the Boko Haram. The sheer scale of it sparked international outrage. It led to a global campaign, the world united in saying, "Bring back our girls." The campaign forced the government of Muhammadu Buhari to act. Some of these girls were indeed rescued by the Nigerian military, but most of them managed to escape on their own. It's been 6 years now. And guess what? 112 girls are still missing. To this day, 112 girls. Their whereabouts are unknown. Their parents are still waiting for their return. The campaign has faded into disappointment. And now another one has begun. Bring back our boys. More than 300 schoolboys have been abducted. The Boko Haram has once again claimed responsibility for this. It's been more than 5 days now. The boys are still missing. Their parents are campaigning for their return. But unlike the last time, the world couldn't be bothered less. There have been a few obligatory statements, and that's it. We at WION have been reporting this story since Sunday. We've been getting you reports, ground reports from Nigeria. We've been airing the pleas of the parents awaiting the return of their children, because this is not a crisis that can be put on the back burner and dealt with when convenient. For more than 300 students to be kidnapped by a jihadist group in broad daylight is no small incident. It deserves the urgent attention of the world. It is important to highlight the fears of the parents and their anger against the inaction of the Nigerian government led by Muhammadu Buhari.
inda gwamnatin nan mai adalci ce kamar yadda suke yi to tsani ga Allah su gaggauta kawo mana ƴaƴanmu domin wallahi da in ba su niyya ba suna da yanda za su yi su kwato mana ƴaƴanmu wallahi amma ba matsala saboda ba ƴaƴansu bane ba shi ya samu sun ba mu cikin bakin ciki da iyayenmu ta kakannin yaran da ƴaƴansu da duka kowa da kowa yana cikin bakin ciki sun samu cikin halin haula ba mu bacci
ani jimami na ba ma na ɗaya ba na ƴaƴa 520 nake jimami saboda ni uwa ce kuma duk da na kowa ne saboda nan kankara muna da sama da mutum 100 wanda duk ya fuskance mu ɗan uwanmu ne ka gani wai ba kukan ɗana kaɗai nake ba kukan 'ya'yan duniya gaba ɗaya mutum 520.
Almost 3 days I'm here whether I can see my child that had been kidnapped on Friday night from those bandit people here in Katsina State. So always when I came here, I expect that I can see my son. But honestly speaking, still I didn't see my son. That's why I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. I'm not happy.
How could they be happy? Hundreds of students have been missing for 5 days, and all the parents have are reassurances from the government of Nigeria. The government of Nigeria has been putting out images of Muhammadu Buhari being briefed by officials. They say the president is fully committed to the rescue of the school students. Have these commitments transformed into action? They haven't, not yet. And this is despite the fact that these kidnappings have happened in the home state of the Nigerian president, the state of Katsina in northwest Nigeria. It had always been plagued by violent bandits. And now the Boko Haram has made inroads in the state by kidnapping innocent students. Just what is the Nigerian government doing? Last we checked, it was negotiating with the kidnappers, shutting down schools and reinforcing security in vulnerable areas. Will that be enough? Again, the answer is no. It should not have come to this in the first place. Boko Haram has made a career out of kidnapping students. We've told you how in the last 10 years they've made $18 million in ransom money. The meaning of Boko Haram is Western education is prohibited, and the group is enforcing its will. The government should have long been on the trail of these insurgents. It should have identified their enclaves and hideouts and smoked them out. Now, with 300 children kidnapped, Abuja has been forced to negotiate on the Boko Haram's terms. There's an urgent need for a swift response to forestall similar incidents in the future. There's also an urgent need to de-radicalize the people living near territories where the Boko Haram operates. In recent years, there has been an influx of Nigerians joining the ranks of Boko Haram, young boys from poor backgrounds, highly susceptible to hate propaganda. The Nigerian government needs to tackle the fundamental factors that are pushing individuals to join this terror outfit and contributing to its growth. Our correspondent Phil Izaha sent us this report from Abuja. I wrap the story with this.
Security analysts have said even if they're making a lot of efforts with military might, they need to change their tactics, they need to change their approach to involve de-radicalizing a lot of people in that region, and then also trying to see how that they can improve the economic realities in that region to ensure that people can do well, because you're seeing people faced with either being forced to join the ranks and file or willingly go to join because they're hungry and they're starving. So that's actually one of the major points that people are saying, that look, the economic challenges in that region is dire and more attention needs to be paid by the government apart from just military might.
To Pakistan now, where a new law is making headlines, a law to curb rape and sexual abuse. It provides for chemical castration of serial rapists. What is chemical castration? What led to Pakistan adopting such a method? And will it be enough to end crimes against women in a country which continues to shame women for the way they dress and behave? A country where the Prime Minister himself has been accused of sexual harassment. Here's a report.
जो मैं उसके बाद समझता हूँ इसकी कैस्ट्रेशन होनी चाहिए, केमिकल कैस्ट्रेशन। अब ये कई मुल्कों के अंदर मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ, तो उनको या सर्जरी करें कि वो आगे से कुछ कर ही ना सके।
Less than 3 months since Imran Khan floated this idea, his administration has brought it to life. Serial rapists in Pakistan will be chemically castrated. Pakistan's President Arif Alvi has signed into law an anti-rape ordinance approved by Imran Khan's cabinet. Under this law, anti-rape crisis cells will be set up to conduct medico-legal examination of rape victims within 6 hours of the crime. A nationwide registry of repeat sexual offenders will be set up. Verdicts in rape cases will have to be delivered within 4 months of trial. Disclosing a rape victim's identity will now be a punishable offence. And repeat offenders will be chemically castrated. But what is chemical castration? It is the practice of suppressing sexual desire in rape convicts. It involves the use of medication to reduce testosterone levels. It does not involve the removal of organs, nor is it a form of sterilization. Pakistan's decision follows months of outcry by women over rising rape cases. In September this year, a woman was assaulted and raped by multiple men in front of her 2 children. The horrific crime sparked nationwide outrage.
We see the government coming out for whatever the mullahs want to say. They come out and they protest and the government just listens to them.
You think twice about what you're going to wear when you leave. You can't walk on the street for more than 5 minutes without being molested by a bunch of eyes.
The Pakistan government may have finally acted under pressure, but reforming a crippled system and society is no easy task. A system where police officials blame rape victims for stepping out late at night.
अब मैं पहले तो ये हैरान हूँ कि 3 बच्चों की माँ है, अकेली ड्राइवर है, आप डिफेंस से निकली हो, आप सीधा रोड लो, जीटी रोड जहाँ पे आबादी है और घर चली जाओ। अगर आप इस तरफ से निकली हो तो कम से कम अपने पेट्रोल चेक कर लो, क्योंकि इस सारे पेट्रोल पंप नहीं होते।
A society where clerics publicly shame women for the way they dress and behave.
मेरे देश में हया को किसने तार-तार किया? मेरे देश की बेटियों को कौन नचा रहा है? उनके कपड़े लिबास मुख्तसर कौन करवा रहा है? किसके गर्दन में मैं ये गुनाह डालूं?
Pakistan's Prime Minister himself has been accused. In 2017, a PTI lawmaker, Aisha Gulalai, accused Imran Khan of sexual harassment on several occasions. The lawmaker faced a wave of abuse by Imran Khan's followers. She was hounded and subsequently forced to quit the party.
जिस तरह मर्डर होता है, फर्स्ट डिग्री, सेकंड डिग्री, थर्ड डिग्री, उसी तरह इसको भी ग्रेड करें, और जो फर्स्ट डिग्री हो उसको तो कैस्ट्रेशन करें, यानी उनको कभी भी, यानी उनको आप ऑपरेशन करके उनको नकारा करके रख दें।
Which degree of crime will Imran Khan classify himself into for these accusations? Bureau Report, We On, World is One.
I've said this in the past and I'll say it again. Terrorism is a business. The world's deadliest terror outfits operate like business enterprises. But what we were yet to discover was that terrorists could even have a life insurance. Believe it or not, an anti-terrorism court in Karachi has been informed that Mullah Akhtar Mansoor, a slain leader of the Taliban, had bought a life insurance policy. He also had purchased properties worth 32 million Pakistani rupees, that is close to $2,000 US. How did a terrorist make this sort of money? And how rich is the outfit that he belonged to? Our next report tells you all about this.
His name was Mullah Akhtar Mansoor, a dreaded terrorist and the erstwhile leader of the Taliban. He was actively involved in planning attacks across Afghanistan. In 2016, he was killed in a U.S. drone strike inside Pakistan. The U.S. Special Operations Forces struck a Toyota Corolla he was traveling in.
It has been confirmed that he is dead, and he is an individual who, as head of the Taliban, was specifically targeting U.S. personnel and troops.
4 years since his killing, Mullah Akhtar Mansoor is still making headlines, not for his crimes, but for his business empire. An investigation into the Taliban's finances has revealed that Mansoor allegedly ran a cell phone company in Pakistan. He operated 2 private bank accounts and owned 5 properties worth over $199,000 US. But the most stunning revelation is this. Mullah Akhtar Mansoor had purchased a life insurance policy using a fake identity. He had even paid 3 lakh Pakistani rupees to the insurance company before his death. This revelation was made to an anti-terrorism court in Karachi that is investigating the Taliban's funding. It has once again put the spotlight on how rich the Taliban has become in the last 1 decade. Where exactly is the money coming from? Drug trade, $560 million. According to the UN World Drug Report 2020, Afghanistan accounted for 84% of the global opium trade. A bulk of this money goes to the Taliban, which manages opium production in areas under its control. The group imposes 10% tax on every link in the drug production trade. This includes Afghanistan farmers who cultivate poppy, labs that convert it into a drug, and traders who smuggle the final product out of the country. Reports say today the Taliban drug empire is worth $560 million. Mining. $537 million. Another lucrative business is mining metals in the mountainous regions of Afghanistan. Mineral extraction and mining companies pay Taliban operatives to keep the business running. According to the Taliban's Stones and Mines Commission, the group earns approximately $539 million a year through the mining business. Extortion and taxes, $215 million. The Taliban also taxes people and industries in areas under its control. Shopkeepers pay for the right to do business. Drivers are charged for using Taliban-controlled highways, and telecom companies are forced to pay a heft protection tax. These tax revenues come extortions bring in around $215 million annually. Charitable donations, $200 million. The Taliban also receives covert financial contributions from private donors across the globe. According to Afghan Center for Research and Policy Studies, these donations add up to $200 million every year. The Taliban operates like a business enterprise. Its great wealth has financed mayhem, destruction, and death over the years. To dismantle this terror outfit, one must cut its financial pipelines. Bureau Report, We Own. World is One.
Before I end tonight's show, this is a story that I must tell you. This is something that's really absurd. It happened in Paris. The French city has been fined 90,000 euros. Or $109,000. Do you know what for? For appointing too many women in senior positions. You heard that right. The French Public Service Ministry has fined the Paris mayor for appointing too many women in City Hall. I'm sure you're wondering what too many means. So let me give you the numbers. In 2018, 11 women were named to management positions in the City Hall. How many men were appointed? 5. Now, if you reverse this number, say 11 men and 5 women were appointed, you will see that things like that happen all the time and all around the world. You know, the ratio skewed in favor of men is seen as normal. Have you ever heard anyone complain about it? Too many men in top positions, let alone slap a fine for this. So what's wrong with appointing more women than men? Is there anything called having too many women at senior positions? Apparently there is. Research says that women score higher than men in most leadership skills, but I do not want to get into a gender war here. My question is very simple. Why would Paris be fined for having 11 women in senior roles as opposed to 5 men? Turns out France has a law. A rule was passed in 2013. It says one sex should not account for more than 60% of nominations to management positions in public service. In 2018, 69% of top Paris City Hall positions went to women. So the city defaulted and was slapped with a fine. The Paris mayor tweeted about it. She said that she will personally deliver the check to the Minister of Public Service, and she will be joined by her deputy mayors and all the women working for her. And she added that this fine is, quote-unquote, obviously absurd, unfair, irresponsible and dangerous. I couldn't agree more. France's public service minister retweeted this. The minister said the cause of women deserves better, adding the absurd provision was repealed in 2019 and the fine paid by Paris will be used to finance actions meant to promote women in public service. Wrapping with that, leaving you as always with Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching.